Hey everyone, this is Thomas Edwards, creator of The Intentional Self and founder of the Professional Wingman. I want to welcome you to the Weekly Intention. The Weekly Intention shares personal stories of the trials of life, the triumphs and tribulations that come with it, and the gifts through the lessons that you can learn so you can apply it to your own life with intention. I am coming back from a fun, wild, aggressive, and enjoyable weekend with one of my buddies as we celebrated him getting married very soon. I was able to go to Arizona and visit Scottsdale for the first time, which was actually really awesome. We stayed at a really amazing house. I'll throw in one of my Instagram videos that I posted so you can actually see kind of the outside by the pool. It was pretty sick, and as you can tell, my voice is a little lacking today because I was just having so much fun with 16 other guys, which is fun, both old friends and new friends. But one of the more memorable experiences that I had was actually not involving what you would traditionally think about when it came to a traditional bachelor weekend. It was actually out hanging out by the pool where one of our friends actually brought over his dog, Shane. And Shane's a Labrador and just an awesome dog to be around. And anytime one of us went into the pool, you just saw how eager he was to just jump in the pool, but he was so scared. And so you'd hear him whimper and just plead for just to get into the pool somehow. And even though we tried to offer and gesture him to jump in the pool, nothing would actually take place. And you would visibly see him shaking and just being anxious and wanting to jump in, but being scared at the same time. And I remember his owner saying, he's never experienced being in the pool, especially with other dogs who enjoyed being in the pool. And I thought that was really interesting. I mean, not having any experience around what it's like to actually have fun being in the pool, I totally get. And so him being reluctant was actually a big deal. But it wasn't until one of our friends jumped in the pool right next to him that made him feel eventually comfortable to jump in as well. And we completely cheered and got really excited. Meanwhile, our friend was thinking we cheered him, but in reality, we were actually cheering Shane. And one thing that was really interesting was as his owner then our friend started to jump into the pool, Shane jumped in right next to him. And when I mean jumping, I mean the dog was leaping, literally leaping in the air, going after toys and swimming around and having so much fun. I mean, it was amazing to see the excitement and also the rapid growth and confidence that was built of him just repeatedly seeing his owner jump in and then having him jump in after. And eventually he became totally comfortable. And now he became happy being in the water, happy jumping in. And it was just amazing to see in that one moment. And it got me thinking, oftentimes we find that we need permission to do things. And I think a lot of us know that we don't really need that permission, but it's a challenge when we don't see enough examples of success in our lives to give ourselves that permission. And typically this is what fools us, what tricks us to believe that we need to see success or even need to experience our own success in order to give us permission, in order to give us confidence, or in order to give us power. And it's really funny. We think that we need that success in order to build confidence, in order to take more action. But it's the other way around. You can't actually have success until action is taken. But let's focus on the idea that we sometimes need to see that success. Sometimes we need to see that example of success in order to feel confident. And sometimes that can be enough to push us. But the biggest difference in actually creating confidence is by doing something yourself, actually just doing it. I'm not saying doing it on your own, but just doing something. It's not the success that gives you the confidence, but it's really the action, your attempt, trying is what creates confidence. It immediately makes what you think is impossible, possible. So if you go back to the story of Shane, the idea of him jumping into the pool was impossible for a long period of time until he eventually had experienced himself jumping into the pool. Now, it wasn't until he took that leap of faith that the impossible became possible. And once you're able to see that the impossible becomes possible, confidence becomes created. It becomes created and becomes something that you can then leverage by continuing to take action, right? So confidence is what makes you want to try again and again, which then creates practice, which creates repetition, and eventually success. Now in the story of Shane, him repeatedly jumping into the pool with his owner created more success, created more action, practice, repetition, until eventually it becomes something that he was doing all the time. When you get success, when success finally comes into your life, that is the multiplier of confidence. See, the action, your attempt, is you gesturing that you have confidence in your ability to actually be successful. So the action creates confidence, but when you get success on the other side, that success is a multiplier. That now takes your success and puts on a whole nother level, which then makes you see, what else did I used to think is impossible that I can create as possibilities? What's the most relevant example that I can offer you is technology. Think about the first piece of technology that was ever created, fire. Fire just didn't spontaneously happen. I mean, I'm sure to the people of those days who discovered fire, it was a spontaneous moment, but it came from, must have been thousands and thousands of different attempts at actually creating fire. That initial action was what created confidence in the thinking that the impossible was actually possible. And that success of creating fire has now created this journey that has taken us to nanotechnology today. Talk about a multiplier of confidence. It's taking fire now, all of a sudden now we're in nanotech, in M theory, and space tech. Action. Action is what creates confidence. And so the lesson I want you to take away from here is confidence is a result of action, but it's never a requirement for you to take action. You don't need confidence in order to do something. You actually get confidence by doing something. And sometimes it's helpful to have an example of what success can look like if you were to try, but you don't need it. When you think about the most successful, quote unquote, people that we know in history, whether they're athletes, inventors, historians, people in politics, in the military, people in business, it all started from them taking action and having that confidence to take action again and again and again until eventually they were able to become successful. But then that success becomes a multiplier. We usually tend to focus on the multiplier of success, right? The end result, as if that person, it happened overnight. And even the traditional quote unquote overnight sensations that you've discovered over time, whether it's on YouTube or through reading or through the media, that was not a literal overnight situation. That had taken many attempts, many stages of action that had created confidence to eventually get to a point of success where now that confidence gets to be multiplied. So how does this apply to life in general? Growing up, my parents married, and my parents are still married. It's been 40 plus years since they, of them being married. More than that, obviously, of being together. But growing up, I always said to myself that I wanted a marriage. I want a marriage like the one my parents have. And my only standard of that desire was from the fact that they were still together and at least willing to stay together. Now, of course, that's definitely not enough to try to create a relationship that is happy, healthy, successful, and long-lasting. But what did I know? That was all I knew and what I took from that from their relationship, and I attributed to what I wanted out of my relationships. And so it became a major element of what I brought into them. And while that was nice and I was appreciative, I had no knowledge or experience as to what it actually took to make that a reality. Having someone stay around and be willing to stay with me long term. And so it resulted in all of my relationships actually suffering and going down the tubes. And it almost pushed me into actually losing my current one with my wife. Now that I had some experience in understanding, what does it take to keep a relationship going? It's not just getting into a relationship that's enough. And you hear me talk about this with my clients, and you hear me talk about this in other videos too. It's never enough just to get to the end. Being in a relationship doesn't automatically become just a means to an end. Actually, it's a means to a beginning. And I've said it to myself, and I say it to clients all the time, getting into a relationship only accounts for a fraction of the total timeline, especially if you want that relationship to last forever. And so in my case, my wife and I will be celebrating 5 years next month at the time of this recording, and we've been together for nearly 10. And if I'm going to be with her for the next 60 plus years, getting into a relationship with her, even getting to the point of being married to her, right? 5 years is a fraction of the total timeline of our relationship. And so the majority of the work, 95% of the work that you're actually going to put in is going to be geared towards keeping that relationship going. And you don't really truly understand it until you're on the other side. Most clients are coming from a place where getting into a relationship is where all the work comes into play. But in my case, the next 60 plus years is going to be where 95% of my work is going to end up being attributed to. And so what I really had to understand was, how do I actually put in these pieces that are going to allow me to have a full, long-lasting relationship with my wife? And the simple idea that I was able to find was going on dates, weekly date nights. I didn't know if weekly date nights were going to work. I didn't know what I was going to necessarily do on these dates, if I had to be over the top, or the conversations that we had to have. But I knew that we needed to create experiences where we can enjoy ourselves together and just remind each other as to why we were together to begin with. Yes, like the first time we actually did this, it was fun and we enjoyed ourselves together. But would I consider that all of a sudden our relationship was cured and we were completely happy and successful right then? No. But what it did was it created confidence in my abilities as a husband, and my hopefulness and my confidence in our relationship and our ability to be amazing. And that confidence was then allowed me to take it into next week's date, and the next week's date, and another date, and another date, and another date, to the point where now our relationship is amazing. And I would definitely consider it very successful and set up to last a very, very long time. But it wasn't until I went on that first date, that first weekly date, that it gave me confidence to understand how I can show up as a husband and how I can make this a very successful relationship. And now we haven't looked back. We have not missed a weekly date night, and we're going up actually almost in a year now of just weekly date nights. And no matter what happens in our lives and our relationships, I can look back and say every time a weekly date night takes place, there's more confidence in myself as a husband. And I'm sure she feels great about herself, not just from what I'm doing, but how she's showing up too, which then creates so much confidence in our relationship going strong. In these experiences, I'm learning a lot about what it takes to actually keep a relationship going, which then in turn allows me to live in the intention of what I originally started off with when seeing my parents, which is I want to be in a relationship that lasts forever. At least right now, at least 45 years, which is where my parents are at. And now I'm learning what it actually takes to be in that. But if I didn't take action by creating something, I wouldn't have the confidence to show up as a husband that's worth being with. I wouldn't be able to have confidence in my relationship with my wife to say that this is going to go the distance. So it's just taking that initial action, that initial step to create the confidence that can eventually lead you to success. Now, as we create success, that success is now multiplied and can take you much farther and open up new possibilities. My question for you guys is, where in your love, lifestyle, leadership, and legacy do you find yourself looking around for permission or confidence to do something, but are holding yourself back from taking action, which will eventually be the key component to getting that confidence? And what is your intention to take action so you can build confidence that can lead you to success? Action is always the most difficult thing in people's lives, yet we distract ourselves by everything else to give ourselves reasons why we haven't taken action, whether it's lack of information, whether it's fear, or lack of enough information, actually, or fear, or lack of permission, or worrying about what other people are going to say. Action takes away from all of that. Action just eliminates all that noise and instantly creates confidence, because by taking that initial action, you are now making a stand for yourself, saying, what I thought was once impossible, I'm making impossible. If this is something that you're still having a struggle with, if you're still wondering to yourself, well, how do I take that action to actually create confidence? If you're in a place where you don't trust that taking action is going to be enough to create confidence, Well, let's put some structure and support around that. So when you go back out there, whether it's in your love life, in your lifestyle, and how you show up as a leader, or in the impact that you want in the world, that you feel confident not only from the beginning, but through that action that you can then leverage towards eventually finding that success that you're looking for. So if that's something that you're interested in having a conversation about, just go to thomasedwardsjr.com/talk and we'll have a conversation all about it. Until next week, this is Thomas Edwards saying, keep it simple, be amazing, and live intentionally.